Hello, and welcome to another session of Lessons from My Mother, Lesson 51. Yes, we are getting closer and closer every single day. Um, we all know what the end goal is. I hope I am able to co author all these lessons with my mother, put in some pictures of her, get my friends and their mums involved, and have like I wouldn't use the term repository, but repository could be one term that it's one function that it serves, but also almost like a picture album. Yes, I know those don't exist anymore for the new generation, but like a picture album with words and advice and just a collection like that. Take a picture album and Chicken Soup for the Soul. If you are an 80s child or earlier, you've probably read them. So try and bring those together. I hope Lessons from My Mother turns into that, which me and my mum would hopefully co-author. That's the goal. All these goals, oh, my diary's here. All these goals are on a list. I wish I could. I don't know if I could show you. Look, that's my whiteboard. It's full of lists in every side, every corner. Um, that's what I do all the time. Um, my laptop is currently resting on one of my diaries, and I could show you work related, home related, personal related, whatever. Everything is divided into lists. Everything, everywhere, all the time. Um, if I ever need to apply for a visa, which still I need to at times, I make a list. What do they need from me? Well, they need this, and I write it down in my diary, and then I start ticking things off. Oh, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. And then I go through them one by one, and then I successfully apply for the things. Same applies to immigration, same applies to university, same applies to whenever I'm writing an academic paper, for example. There's a strict format to an academic paper. You don't write as if it's a column or a novel. You write it as a technical document. It needs an introduction, typically 6 to 8 paragraphs. Then it needs a literature review. Then it needs a methodology section, how you're going to do the research. Then it needs results, if it's a quantitative, no, even in qualitative papers. It needs results, then discussion, then conclusion. And in the conclusion, you also include further research, limitations, managerial implications, policy implications, and so forth. An academic paper is an incredibly technical document. It's used to advise policy in governments. It's used to steer research, industry, think tanks, all of them. It's an incredibly technical document. So whenever I'm writing one, whether it's me alone or when I'm co-authoring, the first goal is to make my headings and structure. Okay, this is going to be the literature review. What is the literature I'm looking at? I'm looking at this, and this. Okay, what does this mean? And note it down, note it down, note it down. Every single thing is listed. For example, even in this document from my wonderful university, there's diagrams and diagrams. I'm trying to, even here, look, these are lists that I've been making all the time. Hey, look, I was writing a paper. What topics am I covering? This, number 1, number 2, number 3, and then I expand them further. There's many more, but I don't want to waste time going through the book. Where does this come from? This comes from my dear, lovely mother. And my mum has been saying, I'd say for the last 31 years, if I recall correctly, when do your exams start? And I would say, well, they're 2 months away. And she'd say, okay, fine. Why don't you make a calendar from today or from tomorrow? Take today off. From tomorrow, start making a calendar. Let's say it's August 14th today. And I'll get back to August 14th in a minute because it's an important day for Pakistan. Why don't you make a calendar from August 14th all the way up till December or September or October? Make a list, a calendar, and then start as soon as you find out the dates of each exam, start putting them in the calendar and then start working backwards. So the first exam should be the last exam that you study. The first exam should be the last one that you study for. So reserve the last 3 days for that one exam and then go backwards, starting tomorrow. And I'd say, but the exam's in October. Yep. You start now and up till October, you'll be ready. So that was a listing that would happen. And then she would look at the calendar, or she'd get us to make lists. And she'd be like, so you've spent 3 days studying geography. I'd say, yeah, okay, let's see. I'm imagining it like a smartphone, but she'd be holding a notebook like this, and she'd be like, okay, let's see. Why don't you open your book? And she'd test us. So, and then if we do well enough, if we have reached a level where only revision is necessary, then she'd put a small star or a tick next to geography and say, okay, great. So now, just 2 days before the geography exam, you're supposed to go through all of this that you've studied. That's it. If we weren't up to mark, she'd put a question mark across or like a dash or something that this needs further study. So why don't you rearrange what you're studying tomorrow and study this? And then she would organize it, help us organize it, and organize it for us too by giving her advice. But it wasn't just education. It was the food we ate. What do you eat? Make a list of the things that you eat. Make a list of the things that you enjoy, things that you don't like, things that are good for you, things that are bad. And we'd make lists and keep looking them over. And then she'd be like, well, okay, if you want to eat ice cream, then you should also eat eggplant or cauliflower or something else. Balance it out. So take 5 from this list, 2 from this list, and she'd make us do that. Then about clothes. What do you have, what you don't have? Blah, blah, blah. So whenever I'm packing, because I've lived on my own for the last 18 years, back and forth, I left college, went to university, and started work and all that stuff. So my mum always starts with, so when are you leaving? And I'd say, I'm leaving next week. Okay. Have you started packing? I'm like, not yet. And she's like, well, where's your list? I'm like, okay. And I start writing down. She's like, what do you need? What are you taking with you? Let's say I need at least this many shirts, this many trousers, this many underwear, blah, blah, blah. I need these books. I need this laptop. And before you know it, I would have spent 2 hours or something just planning everything. But then the mental labor would be done. I didn't need to plan anymore after that. I'm done. And then I just had to do it. So I can do it in the last 2-3 days, but my mind is clear. So she'd be like, where's your list? And she'd be like, show me. Oh, so you're taking that shirt as well. Okay. Okay. Do you want me to wash it? I'm like, no, I'll wash it then. No, I'll wash it. In fact, bring all this stuff that you're taking with you and I'll put it in the laundry. I'll get it dried. I'll get it pressed. And then you can prepare your luggage and the notebooks you need and the books you need and whatever, take them with you. So those lists have helped me so much, even outside of academic work. When I was working as an architect in Pakistan or in Turkey or in America, I'll share a bit about the profession then. In architecture, you get a client. The client says, I need you to build or design something for me. It could be a house, could be a hospital, a museum, could be an airport, could be anything. And they come over and they say, well, I need this. This is my budget. This is the place, blah, blah, blah. You go and visit the site. And after you come back from the site, you divide your workload. If it's just you, or if you have a team, you say, you do this, I'll do this. You spend some time doing design development, and then you figure out, oh, it should look like this, and it should have this and have that. And you show those initial concepts to the client, and if they like it, then you're like, okay, give us 2 weeks or so, whatever the project is accordingly, and we'll prepare all the drawings. And there are base layouts, which show you how the floor plan is arranged. Then there are construction drawings on where the columns are, the structural drawings. There are plumbing drawings and HVAC for the air conditioning, electric, water, wet and dry spaces, activities, circulation, fire exits, all of them. Now we have some software like Revit, which do all of them together and which can prepare them for you. But initially, I'm talking from 10, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, to the last 8,000, 10,000 since we've had architects in the world. It would be drawn and redrawn, and it'd be like, okay, this is the base plan. On this plan, I'm going to put all the columns, and I'm going to put all the roofing and all the plumbing and blah, blah, blah. So when I was working, I was only a junior at that time, and I was working with two senior architects. And they would just say things like, we need this, we need that. And I'd be sitting listening in the first few meetings. And then I procured a small diary, like an A6. I'd be sitting and I'd make notes, just writing them very, very quickly. Just like that. And I'd be making notes all the time. And they'd say, and then I'd come back to my table and I would transfer those notes into more detail in writing, and then cross-reference them, rearrange them, strategize, and then in the next meeting, which would be the next day or the day after, I'd say to the mid-level architect before the senior, and say, sir, I've noticed that we are doing all these tasks. This is a list of all the tasks that I have observed that we're doing. What tasks would you like me to do? I could simply say, I'm happy to do this, but understanding the hierarchy and chain of command, I would give them the option, and they would love the initiative so much. They'd be like, this is great. What would you like to do? And I would like, can I do the residential and housing? And they're like, cool, okay. You handle that, we'll handle this. And then they'd be like, make a few copies of this piece of paper, or type it up and email it to us, or make a few copies and leave one with each other. And then they would have that paper on their desk and they'd tick it. They're like, what have we done? Have we done the floor plans? Okay. How's the housing coming? 90%, and they'd put 90% and the date under it, and they'd follow it up. Everywhere I've gone, I've made similar organizational adjustments which have improved not workflow, but work ethic and productivity, blah, blah. When I was teaching in Turkey, I was training civil servants and engineers and managers from German and I think Dutch companies or European companies when I was in Turkey. So I was training, I was part of the Turkish American Association, I was serving the government and so forth. And I would have 9 or 8 different sessions almost every day. So I'd go on a Monday at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'd finish at 9:30 in the evening. And I'd work 12 and a half hours every day, maybe take some time out for lunch, but I'd be working all the time. And it wasn't the same sessions every day, it was different sessions. So I had to reorient myself every single time. And it was a bit overwhelming, I have to say. It was a bit overwhelming, but very quickly I started making my lists. Thanks to my mum. I started making my list and I'd say, okay, this person comes on Monday and Thursday. Okay. So I didn't need to be thinking about this person on any other day because I was working weekends as well. 7 days a week, 12 and a half hours a day. Normally. Loved every minute of it. So this is how much I'm working. I didn't need to think of this person except on Monday and Thursday. So he comes on Monday afternoon and Thursday evening. All right. Or Thursday afternoon. Let me plan when I'm going to work over his material. So I would look at his material in the mornings, Monday and Thursday morning. Never again. Just Thursday morning, I'd be sitting for an hour and I'd be like, okay, we've covered this. We're going to cover this. And I'd have a list. And the same list, the student or the civil servant or the politician, because I've taught politicians as well, they'd take a photograph of it. Like, let me have a picture of that list. And they'd take a photograph of it and they'd follow it. Okay, so how much time are we going to spend on this one thing? And I'm like, just, let's say 2-3 weeks. Okay, cool. So I'm here for 5 months. So we could do this, we could do that. And it would be arranged exactly in that manner. So I would organize it because there came a time where other trainers or coaches or consultants around me were producing 20% of my yield. Financially, but also in terms of hours and in terms of clients. I'm very grateful for this, but the the association started getting clients who would ask for me by name because others had told them about me. I'm very grateful for that. I'm not showing off. I'm just very grateful for that. But that happened because I was churning out energy and power and force and all of that. But I was able to go home, eat breakfast, dinner, lunch, or maintain my life because I had my lists. So let's say it was a Thursday or a Saturday. So Saturday morning, I'd be up at 7, 8 because it would be on the list. Be at work before 9 because it starts at 9 and then it goes on till 9:30. And I'd get to work and it would be a full day on a Saturday, nonetheless. So I'd be there and I'd be like, okay. So the first 4 hours until lunchtime, because I'd take some lunch, until lunchtime, I don't really need to express myself so much because after lunch I'm teaching an advanced TOEFL class. TOEFL, the English language test. I'm teaching that after lunch. I don't want to be out of steam for that. So these 4 individuals are individual one-on-one clients who have to sit. Sometimes it was negotiation techniques, sometimes it was presentation techniques, sometimes it was writing. It was different skills. So with that in mind, I would say, oh, all right. So for the next 4 hours, for the next 4 clients, I'm going to let them talk and just guide them. So I'm like, okay, you're presenting in front of the ministry or you're presenting Davos or whatever. Start. Let's start. And you're like, I have nothing. I was like, fine, just start. Just start. And we'd figure everything out accordingly. And then once they would finish, I would like, all right, wonderful, see you next week, goodbye. And I'd go back to my office and I'd tick on my list. I'd be 1 down, 8 more to go. 2, 3, 4, big class, this class, that class, big gathering, whatever. Otherwise, I would have been just, what's the word? Life would have been drained out of me otherwise. So the same happens now. I was in London just a few months ago, and I was sitting with 2 friends of mine from Oxford, and they were saying, we see you online a lot with your podcasts and videos. And I was saying, yeah, it's one's for my mother, one's for the Quran and the other books. And they said, and you're also running your startup. And I was like, yeah, I'm running. I have my co-founders, and we're a good family, and yeah, we're running the startup. And you're doing your doctoral research. Yes. And you're writing fictional work. Yes. And they were like, and we see you running blah, 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 and you're posting updates of your running, and you're giving a TED talk, and you're doing this. How are you doing all of this? I was like, I didn't really see it as something that was out of bounds. I have a list. I know exactly what I'm doing on Mondays. I have to do it on Mondays. I do lessons from my mother on Mondays, and I know exactly what I'm doing on Fridays. I have to do Finding God series on Fridays. And I know when I'm doing my research, I normally don't do my research on the weekends for my doctoral work. I don't do it on the weekends. I do it during the weekdays, and I treat it like a proper work day. Like I start in the morning after breakfast, and I do the research, or I produce and I read and write, and then I'm done with it. And on the weekends, I'm looking at the startup stuff, and I'm writing in the evenings sometimes, because in the mornings I'm working on work stuff. So in the evenings I'm writing in my journals about novels, and I'm typing them up. So the day is segmented. That's how it's working. And there's a list of how the day would be segmented, and that list is on the board, that list is in the diary, and that list is in the phone, and every time something is reminding me of it. That one list is guiding so much of my life. And when something new comes, I look at it and I say, do I have time for that? I have to do these 3 things today. If I do that one new thing, will I be compromising these 3 things or not? And how important are these 3 things? No, I can't do it. Yes, I can. And everything organizes accordingly. So I know a lot of my friends have issues with lists. They don't want to make a list. They feel bound. They feel restricted, blah, blah, blah. But I've heard this, something to the effect of the most planned person has the freest amount of time, something along these lines, which means if you can organize yourself, the most organized person has the most free time, something like this. If you can organize yourself perfectly, there's nothing perfect, but approximately perfectly, then when you take a break or go enjoy yourself, it's guilt free. Otherwise, if you're enjoying yourself while being guilty, I didn't do anything today, it's unproductive. It doesn't make sense. It's not really enjoyment, is it? You're like, I'm here at the cinema or at Oceaga or at the Canadian Open, but I haven't done any work. No, set time aside for work, set time aside for enjoyment, and do it. Just do it that way. And a list or a calendar, which is essentially a list in a different format, a list or a calendar or something along those lines, which you can tick off, write down, reassess, reevaluate, something like that is the central feature to organizing your life. And I know whoever watches this, somebody might say, well, no, I've never needed a list. You're lying. You're lying. I know John, and John's never used a list. John's lying to you. Or you haven't seen it. Sometimes people have their lists in their mind and they're like, wake up at 5, do this at 7, do this at 9, go here at 11, blah, blah, blah. And they have it all sorted out. You see any high-performing athlete, any high-performing person in business, even academia, in show business, wherever, and you'll very soon learn that they have a very strict routine. I was watching like a YouTube short, I think last year or something. A person was asking all these successful people around America and maybe a few in England, what time they wake up. And the average time was 3:30 in the morning and 5 o'clock in the morning. That was the time. And all of them were saying it. What time do they go to bed? 9 and 10. 9 and 10, 9 and 10, maybe 10:30. 9 and 10, we go. Imagine if you're living your life in a manner where somebody asks you, what time do you wake up? You don't say, I don't know, Sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 11. I don't know. What if you ask somebody and they say 5 o'clock, 4:30, 4 o'clock? What time do you go to bed? 9 o'clock, 9:30. Somebody who has their daily wake and sleep routine activities, which is incredibly important, so clearly demarcated. Wouldn't they plan the rest of their day? Of course they would. They would say, okay, I'm up at 4, nothing to do. I'm just going to sit. It's like, I'm up at 4. At 4:35, I should be doing some sort of a workout, a run or a swim, whatever. Once I'm done, by 6 o'clock, I should be having breakfast after a nice shower. And by 6:37, I should be leaving for work or doing something else or starting work if you're working from home. And then by 6 p.m., I should be back and I should be doing this and this. And they have their day demarcated, which is exactly the function of a list. So it's an incredibly important lesson that my mother has taught me in lesson 51. Make lists and tick them off because it's been central to my life. And I'll give you two things for today. August 14th, 2023 is Pakistan's 76th birthday. So Pakistan Zindabad, happy birthday, Pakistan. Proud of you. You've been through a lot of stuff. You're still going through a lot of stuff. But try and look at the United States in the 1800s. Try and look at some other countries in their conception. You can't compare yourself to India. India didn't let go of a 5,000, 6,000-year-old civilization trying to import something from another country, which is the Islamic world. India didn't have to go through that. India's founder or administrator, so to speak, did not pass away in the first year. Gandhiji wasn't an administrator. He was the spiritual force. Like for us was Allama Iqbal. So India's administrator passed away in 1964, the great Jawaharlal Nehru. So you can't compare yourself to India. You can't compare yourself to China. China was a juggernaut from the beginning. You can't compare yourself to Turkey. Pakistan is Pakistan. And I know locals of the land are incredibly disappointed at where it is, what they've done. I say to them, give it 100 years. It's only 76. Give the country 100 years, and you'll start seeing, unless it devolves into civil war and then starts separating, which is the foreign policy goal of many countries around the world. Unless it does that and it finds certain unifying points and industrial sectors, I have great faith in the country. I know it can do well. I have great faith in the people of the country. I don't hate the people. I love the people. So I always tell them that, look, this is just a process. We're supposed to fail. You can't look at India, China, America, England. You can't look at them. Just be patient. You're going to get there. So happy birthday, Pakistan. Jashn Azadi was Mubarak. And secondly, I have to celebrate something because we're talking about lists. There's a list on the back wall here. I think you can see it hung on the on the column. And there's a list which says when I started running, when I was able to run 1 hour non-stop, then 1 hour 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 2 hours. I'm pleased to say that today I was able to run 2 hours non-stop. It is my personal best, personal record. I've never run this long. I'm a sprinter from childhood. I've never been able to run this long, and today I was able to run 2 hours non-stop. It's a huge achievement. And I was only able to do so because every time I would run an hour, I'd come back and say, okay. So I started running last year on September 6th, Defense Day, incidentally. Defense Day, I just realized that for Pakistan. September 6th is when I started running. And then by November 13th, I was able to run for an hour. And then it started snowing in Montreal. And then I went to Saudi. And then I came back. And I was moving here and there. So I wasn't able to maintain the rhythm. But I picked it back up. I ran an hour 20, hour 30, 40. And I was meant to do hour 50 today. But I was like, let me just try 2 hours. And I was able to do it. But it's only because I had a list which would say, on the 22nd of June, you have just completed 1 hour 30 minutes. And then on the blah, blah, blah of July, you've completed this. That is why it was in my head that, look, I can run 1 hour 30 minutes because I've done it 3 times before. I would tally it that I've done this so many times. That's why I was able to do it. So it's a good day for Pakistan, and it's a good day for me as well with regards to some personal achievements. So this is a lesson from my mother that has been incredibly central. I hope you take it to heart, and I hope it can benefit you too. I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to see you all next week. Take care.